It's apparently right behind me. Join me in the pledge.
And on the other side.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this work session this evening. To start, I think we normally take attendance first.
Mayor Carney?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
Mr. Udell?
Yep, here.
Ms. Ferguson?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Rucker?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Moving right into this, as we may have a longer evening, I would look for a motion to approve the November 2nd agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
And I will accept a motion to approve the October 3rd, that's the joint Madison County meetings that have been updated, meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. This is the joint one?
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
It's the Madison.
Mr. Udell?
Yes. I did remember
Ms.
that.
Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
And I would accept a motion to approve the October 24th, 2022 meeting minutes.
So moved? Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
All right, smooth so far. So old business, moving right into old business. Second reading, resolution 2022, the municipal bridge inspection program. I would take a motion on this.
I'll motion to approve second reading of resolution 2022.
I'll second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Second reading, resolution 21, 2022, creating the development manager position.
Motion to approve resolution 21, 2022.
Second?
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
All right. Moving into new business. First reading, ordinance 23, 2022, an ordinance amending sections 132710 and 132711 of the codified ordinances. And for those that aren't aware, that's the actual, that's actually the appeal process for the DRB. It would obviously be for the future, not for this hearing. First reading ordinance 24, 2022, an ordinance approving the vacation of a public alley within the village of Plain City running between Main Street and Bigelow Avenue. First reading ordinance 25, 2022, a resolution establishing and entering into a community monument easement and maintenance agreement for the clock tower property at 101 South Chillicothe Street. Okay. And then it's kind of weird. These are kind of yours. I will actually just motion. I will motion to appoint Nick McCullough to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
And even though he's been doing it since the beginning of this meeting, I will motion to appoint Justin Dreyer to serve as the clerk of council.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
All right, so we got through all that. That's a page and a half. Page and a half. All right. So before I turn this over to Mr. Lafayette a little bit, I just want to go through how this will go for the DRB findings of fact certificate of appropriateness 2211. For those of you that are unaware, we had our appeal hearing at our last meeting. Mr. Lafayette has taken the time to write up the findings of fact and share those with everyone. What we will do as a point of order is we will take the findings of fact, adopt them into the record, and vote on their acceptance into the record. We will then have deliberations where we will write those up. Mr. Lafayette will write those up. I'm guessing he'll email them to us, or Justin will email them to us. We'll email them to us. We'll have a second to review them. So there may be a brief recess between the deliberations and the vote, just so everyone knows, just to give you time to look them over and us to read them. As a point of order, we will then adopt those deliberations into the record. Again, just by a simple majority vote that we all agree with the findings of fact at first, and then that we all agree with the deliberations, and then we will have the actual vote. So, do we agree with the findings of fact? Yes or no? Deliberate. Do we agree with the deliberations? Yes or no? And then we will make a decision on the actual DRB hearing. So does that make sense? I know it's kind of, I just want to walk through those beats with everyone.
Are the findings of fact from our appeal hearing, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, those were sent out.
That's what I sent to you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Okay, it was basically, basically the findings of fact are the summary of all the testimony and evidence.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's not a verbatim, it's not a transcript, but it's a summary of all of it. For you guys to review, see if you agree with it. If you agree with it, you adopt it. And then we move forward with the deliberations on the actual factors. That's simply up to you guys. I'm going to record it live so that we save time and don't have to have another hearing.
Thank you.
And then at the conclusion of that, like Mr. Terry said, we're going to take a little break so that you guys can review it, make sure I typed it right. I'm going to type as quick as I can, make it logical. And then you guys will make a vote on the underlying, after the deliberations have been adopted, then we'll have a formal vote on yes or no on the appeal.
Perfect. So saying that, if everyone's had an opportunity to review the findings of fact, I would accept a motion to adopt the findings of fact for certificate of appropriateness COA 2211 into the record.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Rucker. Abstain. Mr. Sins.
Yep, yes.
That makes sense. Forgot about that part. All right, so now, just so everyone knows, now we're moving into the deliberation page. So I have, and I think it was included in the packet tonight, 132708, the standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, and 132709, the design guidelines. For format purposes, if it's okay with everyone, it's very similar to what we do in the BZA. We will just go through these kind of like point by point. So we'll start with A, B. Everyone will have the opportunity, again, everyone on council will have the opportunity, the public portion is closed, the opportunity to say their piece. We'll draft that in, and then we'll just go through them, and that is what will be written up.
These are the same on both sides.
Yep.
Both 1327.08 on both sides.
So you don't have 132709? Do you have on your computer, 132709 is available in the packet?
I do have
In the findings of fact, it's actually pages 12, 13, and 14, is that right?
Yep.
Mr. Daly? Yeah.
Yep. Actually have them.
So let's make sure everyone has a chance. Yeah?
We might be
Okay.
able to publish it up on the screen as we go too.
Yeah, is that possible?
I'm sorry.
Is it possible just to like get 132708 and 132709? Again, I'm just gonna like literally hit these beat by beat through. So we'll give that a second. Yep, perfect. I mean, it's gonna be hard to read, but it's okay. If anyone needs more, all right. So I'm not going to read the first paragraph, but everyone hopefully during this brief break has read over this. And we will say the standards and guidelines are A property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. For me, I believe the original use was a multi-use commercial. It is still going to be a multi-use commercial. I think that the percentage of change is kind of at the heart of this conversation, but I think we talked about 95%. So for me, I believe that we are using it for the purpose that it was originally used for. So that is my thoughts on A. Any other comments? Okay. B, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Again, I'll say my piece. We don't do this every way. Maybe next time I'll call on you guys. But we're obviously removing that vestibule. For me, the removal of that vestibule to save the rest of the building and maintain the structure and integrity of the rest of the building, again, is kind of at the heart of this. But when you look at those profiles from both South Chillicothe and Maine, I believe we're retaining it. So the actual character of it, I believe we're retaining. The vestibule itself isn't original, but it's historic. Let's not pretend like it hasn't been around a while. So for me, while we are removing a piece, I think we are retaining the overall character of the property.
That vestibule has no historic aspects at all to it compared to the rest of the building. And we have to take out some bricks to open up a doorway for them to be able to build on. So the removal of what they're taking of some of the historical aspect is not that big. You're going to need that for an entrance anyway. And they're trying to save as much of the brick as they can on the front, which is, we saw from the evidence last week that it's bowing out, and they're trying to save as much as they can, which is a lot.
I was just going to say that there is a document that I found, a couple documents that I found at the Library of Congress that do show that vestibule, or whatever we're calling it, that lean-to, was at least there as early as 1895. So
That back part
yeah,
is that old.
yeah. Now, whether it was ripped down and rebuilt, I don't know, but you know what I mean. It does show as part of the structure. I would also agree that I don't feel like it's not in any photographs. So I don't feel like it's part of what we consider the historic structure of that building. But
C, and if anyone wants to go back, just let me know. C, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. For me, I didn't see anything in this was separate. It's kind of interesting, right? You're trying to create a separate entity, but also keep it with historic materials. I think this is probably the crutch of a lot of DRB conversations. For me, it doesn't feel as if the current expansion is attempting to provide a false sense of historical preservation in the actual, we'll call it expansion or replacement portion. D, most properties change over time. Those changes that acquire historic significance, their own right shall be retained and preserved. So I guess to Mr. Sense, I don't know, this is for you a little bit. So for me, it sounds like there are two different timelines. We don't know exactly the timelines of that vestibule. But, you know, if it's 1895, right, that I think we would be false in our, I think we'd be false if we said that that isn't a long time, right? It's 125 years that that vestibule's been there. So I think for this one, that has been added and has been there for a long time. So so it says most properties change over time, those changes require historic significance of their own right and shall be retained and preserved. I think there's extenuating circumstances on some of these other ones, but I think it would be incorrect if we didn't say that that has some historic significance. Does anyone disagree?
But they're also, I believe that they did mention they are reusing those bricks in other places.
So retained and preserved, yep.
Correct.
So it would be, they are retaining and preserving, sure.
Does the vestibule, is it part of the historical character of the front of the building? No, it's on the back side. You don't see it.
I agree with the profile. I think we referenced the profile from Chillicothe and Maine isn't changed. And when you think about that, I think it's a good point. Any other additions to this one? E, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. So if the client to me is the building, right, and that's who we're focused on, to preserve the craftsmanship that exists today, I think the structural engineer and the architect testified that putting the elevator on the outside preserves the craftsmanship of the arches and the interior and the front-facing portion the most. So I certainly think that portion is being preserved, and I think that by putting the expansion where it is probably helping to preserve that. And I think even someone testified that we don't even have craftsmen that can do this anymore. So those are kind of my thoughts on that one. But of course, again, you're talking about the vestibule, that is, a little different. So.
Well, even the expansion that they're doing off the backside, they are building away from the cornices that are at the top, and they're preserving that historic look, even around the corner on the backside. If I remember from the testimony last week that they said that they are not going to be touching that cornice on the backside. They're building below it, so you can still have that intact.
Any additional comments on this one? All right. Deteriorated historical features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of a deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and visual qualities, and where possible, materials, replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, and pictorial evidence. All right, so again, we're talking about the COA itself is on the back, so I'm trying to stay away from the rest of it. We definitely are repairing, replacing the portions, and we're definitely moving those bricks. It's interesting because I don't actually know if the vestibule itself is deteriorating. The rest of the building kind of is, and that's what we're preserving. What are you guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know this one. This one doesn't feel as relevant. This feels like it's more relevant to the windows and things like that that are replaced.
Which we're not specifically talking. I agree with Mr. Sens. If we're certainly repairing the other portions, but I'm trying to focus as much as we can on the aspect as. So it's not really deteriorated, the actual vestibule or replacement. So I will say that, again, to the testimony of the structural engineer, the architect, by placing it here, but again, we're not talking about the alternatives right now, we're just talking about this actual application. So I don't have a lot to add here. Anyone else? Chemical or physical treatments such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. The surface cleaning of structures, if appropriate, shall be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. I didn't go out and watch what they're cleaning with, but they said they aren't using sandblasting. this is a very specific item, I think, to chemical and sandblasting, and I don't think they're doing any of that, so not relevant.
Would agree.
Anyone disagree? All right. Significant archaeological resources affected by the project shall be.
Actually, if you want to go back to the last one, if you look on their exterior work in their notes, it says the first thing in masonry repairs, replacing existing damaged or misplaced bricks, infill abandoning openings, tuck pointing, mortar joints, clean surface with bricks using appropriate detergent mix, no abrasive cleaning proposed. So it states in their details right there that they're not using abrasive.
Perfect. I think they testified, if I remember correctly, that they aren't using anything, so. Perfect. Any other comments on G? H, significant archaeological resources affected by a project shall be protected and preserved. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures shall be undertaken. I don't believe anyone found any historical archaeological resources so far. No one testified to anything, so I would say this one's not relevant. There's nothing on that sheet which says they found an arrowhead, right? All right. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, the size, scale, architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. So this one's key, right? This one to me is super key. I don't know if we want to go around, if anyone has any thoughts on this one.
I agree that this one is key. This is where it gets into, that whole addition. What does that mean from a massing and scale and architectural features? I mean, they talk about the board and batten, and we know that that's at the time was used significantly on barns. I don't see any pictures of board and batten on any of the buildings downtown. I do see it on some of the structures, the sheds and stuff, and some of the historic photos from the 30s and earlier on the sheds. It's clearly a material or a siding material that at least gives an oldie-timey feel now, right? We put it on stuff and it gives us that feeling of it. Sorry, that's not a very...
It's fine. It's fine. They have to write it up now.
Yeah, so good luck with that. So that's where, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's trying to, going up to one of the other points, mask itself as as an original structure, or as original to the building. So there's a clear separation that still evokes history without saying, I'm part of this building. So.
Perfect. I agree, and I think that when we look at those profiles again, I think that the architectural showed us about the height and the massing and sizing that they were trying to, and obviously an elevator has to go slightly above. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I'm guessing so they can get in there and like fix it and everything. So, but the actual profile, I do feel as if the massing and sizing, they took the effort to do that. I certainly think that it's differentiated from the old and shall be compatible. So I think we're meeting all of those. Again, it comes down to shall not destroy materials that characterize property. And again, for me, the main character of the property is that initial building. So I think it's okay, but that's obviously the main point of this conversation. So.
Well, if you look at the addition that they're putting on, it's not like an eyesore. It's going to be sticking out like a sore thumb, I don't believe. Even the color of black, if you look down the hall, down that aisleway, I think it would just almost be hidden into the shadows. If we see that, even with that little lean-to that's there. The board and batten, that was very typical, as you said, even in the late 1800s, they used it. Mainly, maybe not on full buildings, but it was a technique that was used back then. So, and I love the fact that they tried to not take that elevator shaft above the peak of the roof to where you could see it and it would stand out. It's shorter than that than what it was, so you still kept the character of what the building is from the front. And even from all corners, if you look at it from the intersection and look over to the building, you will not even see this addition, I don't believe, because it'll all be tucked behind the building. You will not see it until you come down through where that hall, that alleyway is.
Mr. Reed, anything to add? Mr. Reed, do you have anything on this?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything on that item before we move on? Okay. New addition, new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and environment would be unimpaired. I don't have any reason to think they couldn't take that piece off. It's really the vestibule that's going away now of the conversation. So I would think that they could remove it, and by putting it on the outside.
I've probably put more thought into this than I should have, but
No, that's good.
when I think about this and I think about putting the elevator inside the structure or someplace, and then I think about the reality of removing that in the future. I mean, maybe at some point we get pants that allow us to fly around. I don't know, and we go, we don't need elevators, but I can't imagine an elevator is going to go away. But if it were put inside the building and it goes away, it's a significant difference to repair and put the building back. But to put that lean-to back on, maybe not the original brick, but you certainly could restore that if the elevator went away, if that whole section went away. The ground can be covered up, and so
I mean, I would agree
my
with
thoughts.
him, because to me, the footprint of the building is the main building, and so that part would not be disturbed. And so if the elevator ever was removed, it would not affect that building. And it also, sharing a wall with Mr. James' property as well, that applies to some other things in here too as well, that it doesn't really, removing that would also, by putting it inside, I guess, I question how the structural integrity could be changed and also affect the building next to it. So this way, it's just more of a clean addition. If it's removed, it only affects that, just that vestibule area.
Perfect. Sounds good. For me, a little bit on that, the actual proposal is outside, not inside. So I'm trying to focus on that piece. Again, it's like taking the toothpaste out of it's hard not to think about the other things. But for me, again, just it being on the outside, being separate, could it be removed without damaging? Certainly, to your point though, if it went inside, it would certainly alter and damage. So that's fine. Anything else on Mr. Udela? Anything on J?
Nope, I agree with the statements that have been said. I think if you put this on the outside, it makes it a whole lot easier to restore if we need to in the future.
I mean, don't misunderstand it. It's not going to be super easy to
No.
restore, but I think it will be less impactful to the building.
Okay. 132709 design guidelines we are now going to go through. The design guidelines listed below shall be used when reviewing applications for a certificate of appropriateness. It's gonna be weird here, but we'll read A, but I think B is actually where we're focused. But A, existing structures and premises, reconstruction or rehabilitation within the historic districts shall conform to the distinguishing original exterior qualities or character of the structure, its site, its environment, which convey its historical, cultural, and architectural value. So for this one, for me, if we're talking about everything other than the vestibule, right, I guess this is what the existing structure is, as opposed to B, and I'll just read B now so we have it. New construction, the design of new structures and of additions to existing structures, including new site improvements, shall take into account the architectural style, general design, arrangement, texture, material, color, or other structures or premises within the district. So maybe we just stop here. for you guys, when you guys read this, I interpret this more as we're like talking about B and not A. Do you guys agree, or do you think it's more A or a little A, a little B? I mean, we could talk about both.
I think A is happening. I don't know that it's relevant to this discussion.
Okay. Agreed. So maybe we just,
I think both things are happening with the structure.
Okay,
But the one that's more pertinent is B.
so let's just do A, so we have it on the record. So, what are your thoughts, Mr. Daly, on existing structures and premises, reconstruction, or rehabilitation within the historic district shall conform to the distinguishing original exterior qualities or character of the structure, its site, its environment, which convey historical, cultural, or architectural value?
The existing structure that's there, they're trying to restore what's there. They're tuck pointing the bricks. They're making it look the way it used to look. And I think they're doing a very good effort with that. Instead of having windows covered up with plywood, they're actually gonna have windows in some of those areas.
Anything else from any other members?
No, you'd have to identify some specific element of the structure that did not satisfy that requirement, and I've not heard one, so.
Perfect. So now let's go to new construction. The design of new structures and of additions to existing structures, including new site improvements, shall take into account the architectural style, general design, arrangement, texture, material, color, or other structures and premises within the district. So it's interesting because like we go into more detail on a lot of these things when we go into materials, but just generally speaking, let's talk about, for me, it's again that profile, that look. I think we're maintaining the frontage, the side look, but from the actual piece of the new construction,
It's gonna blend.
It's gonna
well
blend
with
in,
everything that's in
yeah.
the district. If you look on the back side of those buildings, them painting the black and going the board and batten, I think it's gonna look just as nice as what's happened down at Pioneer Pizza. They put up the black on the back and they painted that black.
Looks
Everything's
nice.
gonna blend very well, I think, through that whole area. It's gonna look like one developer's done that, I think, when it's all said and done. And that's what we wanna look, we wanna have a certain look. It's not gonna look like we slapped a Band-Aid out there and put it up. And I think when it comes to the new construction, they've tried to do that. I mean, if you look at the textures and materials that they're using, you can see there's other things that are down there already that are those colors. Yeah, the existing building doesn't have black on it, but if you look at some of the other structures that are around there, there is black used significantly in their designs.
I'm
Yeah.
curious why we're talking about black.
Because it was brought up last week in the thing. It's a
Yeah, I know,
significant thing that they
but,
mentioned was the color scheme.
right, to not have black on a building, you would have to prove that it wasn't a historic color in the village, and I don't think that's provable. Because even though we did black and white, it all comes out gray in photographs, so that evidence wouldn't exist. So, I think it's like immaterial, whether black or not. It's not a point that you can actually make. It's not historic.
Yeah. Perfect. Anything else?
The only thing, so I'm when I read this, or other structures and premises within the district, that's the district as it is now, not the district as it was. And so I think it fully fits that.
Yeah, this is a very complicating process, right? Is that when you do a new construction, it has to be separate and not false historic. However, it has to also at the same time blend with the district as it is today and not take away from the historic nature. So, to your point, the new construction needs to fit into the historic district of today without disturbing or pretending to be part of the historic portion. It is like the heart of the conversation. So that's why when I talk and I think about like the site layout, the profiles, the massing, the sizing, but still you need it to be a separate entity that you can come in and say, that's not historic, that is historic. It really gets sorry to get into color comment, the gray area of this. So it is tough. So But to me, I think they're talking about the district of today for the new construction, but not while also not taking away from what it was.
Well, and they've even taken the opportunity to, I mean, if you look at the windows, they're even putting in, you know, the mullions that are in the windows that match what's the old ones that are there, although they're not putting the archways over top, so it wouldn't be a false historic feature that you can tell that was.
And you're talking about the windows on the vestibule, on the new addition.
On the new addition. I mean, if you look at the video, the elevation view, you can see where there is the existing historic, then you can see what the new is. They've matched a little bit, some details, but they didn't match all, which I think is good, because then you're not a mimic of it, and you're not doing the fake historic, what you're saying.
Historic,
False
yeah.
historic.
All right. C, materials. 1, all new structures and all reconstruction or remodeling of existing structures within the historic district shall utilize natural, traditional exterior materials such as brick, stone, masonry, glass, and wood. They are not. I think that one's pretty straightforward. They're using the board and pattern. We've heard that, we've had testimony as that it will look like wood, and the reason for the replacement is that it will actually add to the longevity of the building, and help with the long term. I think the idea was that it lasts longer, but it's not brick, stone, or I guess, is there some brick going on? No, right? They're not using this,
No,
right?
it's just
This is
cement
good.
board.
You know, this issue of the materials could go either way, depending on how you read that section. I think we covered that in the,
Yep.
or at least I alluded to it. The use of fiber concrete, whatever that is, I
Sure.
don't know, is not listed there as an acceptable material. But depending on how you read the whole paragraph, in one reading, it's in conflict with it, it's not allowed. In another reading of the same paragraph, you can do it, because there's an exception.
Yeah, and maybe if we go to add 2,
Yeah,
so I was just adding,
second
I was
half.
just talking about
Yeah.
1, just to
Right.
clarify.
Second half of 2.
Yeah, so if we read 2, the use of contemporary materials such as aluminum, other metals, fiberglass, and plastics for exterior surfaces or an architectural significant structure shall be prohibited unless the use of such materials would contribute to the preservation or enhancement of the existing traditional materials and the overall integrity and longevity of structure. So I believe what you're referring to is
That last part,
yeah,
that
so,
last phrase.
so I do, here's my simple, they're in conflict with 1, but that's why 2 exists. Is so if you're in conflict with 1, you have other item. However, saying that, I also, the new addition portion isn't the historical piece. The historical piece is the building that is being preserved, that this certificate of appropriateness is not about. However, I think to Mr. Reed's point, to improve the longevity, that's why they're doing that, and that's allowable under 2. And the way I read this is C, if you do 1, fine, no worries, but if you can't do 1, you gotta do 2.
And if I understood from the testimony of the developer, they mentioned when there was conversation about this during the hearing, that if the material itself is the issue, they can use real wood for that it's still gonna look the same.
Yeah, but just to be clear,
say they
we
were,
are
they said
we are evaluating the application as is.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I would have to look at our lawyer. I don't think we are in a position where we would approve with like exceptions. So I think we should be looking at this as the application as is. So if you wanted that, you would have to go that route.
Yep. Understood, thank you.
D, color. Traditional colors and combination of those colors that are both identified with the origin of or the era in which the structure of the property was built shall be used for exteriors for all new structures to be built and reconstruction, remodeling, exterior maintenance of the existing structures within the historic district. The colors are off the Sherman-Williams historical palette. I don't know.
Yeah, they're approved colors. It's an approved color.
Signs, I crossed this off, so, all signs within the historic district shall conform to color and material standards of this section and be of such a style or design that reflects the era during which the structure was built. Sign size and shape shall also not be permitted to cover blank out or close existing window or doorway openings or otherwise hide important architectural features. I don't believe there's a sign in this application. F, guidelines. The standards and design guidelines established in this chapter, which is 132709 and 1327 overall, or any design guidelines, design diagrams, or color guidelines later adopted by ordinance are to be used in evaluating applications. Unless the board determines that a deviation from such provisions will not be contrary to the public interest and is warranted by special circumstances. In granting a deviation, the board may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards to maintain the spirit and intent of this chapter. I read that to say that it does not have to tick and tie every single piece, and there are going to be some places, and the overall spirit of the restoration and maintaining the property is what they're trying to do. So I guess on that kind of statement, what I would say is, and I've kind of alluded to this, is the idea is that we are trying to rehabilitate and restore the uptown area and also maintain the structure and make sure that we have the longevity of these buildings. To bring something up to modern ADA compliance and use, and putting an elevator in seems like a part of the modern era. So in doing that, we want to minimize the overall damage to the property, as the property is my client and what I want to maintain for as long as possible. So by keeping this on the outside and not disrupting the inside, you maintain that, you know, they showed us pictures of the archways that are broken and falling apart. For me, this ensures and helps protect the longevity of the building the longest. And I think what they're trying to get at in that statement is that's the spirit of the DRB. That's the spirit of these chapters. That's the spirit of these codes. And it's our determination of, is this certificate of appropriateness going to deviate from that and not meet what we are trying to do in this chapter? That's kind of my overarching thought on what we're going after on the F there. Anyone have any thoughts on F for guidelines? Okay, saying that, I'm going to say we'll close on deliberations, and maybe we'll take, I would accept a motion for maybe a 10-minute recess to allow for us to review the deliberations before we adopt them into the record.
I will motion for a 10-minute recess.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Abstain.
Mr. Sens?
Yep, yes.
Okay. So you guys gonna use the bathroom stuff, we're gonna read up, make sure no one misquoted us or anything, and read them over.
We need no one. Only one guy doing this.
What?
What do you mean, no one?
We're
There's
not
only one
gonna
guy
pause
doing it.
recording.
Yep. We're not going to pause the
So
recording.
this is a 4-vote.
I don't think you need to pause the recording.
On this issue, right?
What's that?
A 4-vote
It's just gonna, it's gonna be
majority.
boring, it's gonna be a boring 10 minutes. Maybe you could play some like music over. Show Fall Fest video.
What I wanted to say was, if anyone wants to go and get me a Diet Coke, I'll gladly pay you.
But thank you for letting us know you're not turning off the
Bring that.
recording.
Oh, yeah, and so,
Helps to have typing skills in your job, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, back in the days when I was at the Supreme Court, I had to type every decision, the whole thing, so after a while you learn to type.
Oh, for God's sake.
It was rough.
I would not have gotten through that job successful. Would not
yeah, so
have.
look at these.
All right, Justin, I'm gonna email this to you. There's a couple areas that we're gonna need to clean up.
So my wife, my daughter's in gymnastics, and she's been going for like a month now, and my son started with jumpers which is like a trampoline class thing time. So she's been hounding us for the last month of she wants to leave because she's just going in with her sweats or whatever.
Now, what's the date on that?
So my wife isn't a girly girl or whatever, and puts her in her leave time for the first time. And I see her, I take a picture of her. We send her off to gymnastics. My wife's there with her, and we send it to like my family or whatever. And someone just responds back with, "You have that leotard on backwards." So our first attempt at girly girl.
There should be a tag.
There is. It's on the side. It's on.
Tag.
It's on the, okay, so it's on the side. So like she was saying, she's like it's a V-neck, so that would be in the back. She's like it's basically the same, but we sent this picture to our thing, and then my wife said she checked, and she's like it's definitely backwards. So she was texting me and saying like, oh, we put it on backwards. Great. Yeah, sure.
Might as well have some fun.
Come back into session. Perfect.
Because I don't want to have any.
No, that's fine.
It's
totally fine. That's totally fine. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. We gave people 10 minutes, so we might as well give them 10 minutes. I think I did that.
Good thing my wife's not here. My wife talks about 3 times faster than I do.
Well, I was just trying to read. I was trying to just like go beat by beat through them. I figured it was the easiest way to be logical and go through it. So.
And the way that this is written, though, it's
I know.
all it needs.
It needs to be read. But we are evaluating on this, so I figured this is the code, that this is the codified ordinance. I will just go beat.
Again, this is Maggie, when we went to the castle, Rich Castle, she taught us how to started here in 2012. So she was laying her head, I think the drapes, would you mind if it's pretty wide eyed.
Hey, just as a reminder, we are. Hey, just as a reminder.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at.
So we're not.
Oh, you're like ready to start.
The problem is,
I was
Looking at
Jack,
stuff,
you
look
got it.
close
He
up.
looks like my little brother. Okay,
It's
he looks
frequently
exactly like my little brother, yeah.
in conflict with the COA.
Yeah.
Wait, is that shows how far down that show?
Yeah.
That show down at my house?
We did that Snapchat photo where you look like a man or a woman.
It might.
It looked exactly
I don't
like
think I don't think it goes to West. Let me look.
Ah, all right. Oh, well.
Was it fun?
This was fire insurance. First day.
It's a fire insurance map.
I know. That's Caitlin.
It definitely
She's
doesn't go as far as West.
graduating
Oh, well.
this year, so. At OSU. That was her kindergarten.
It basically covers the downtown where they've got to protect, you know, fire, where they've got to, where fire is. But it does reference in here, it talks about what Plain City had at its times firefighting so forth. Like it talks about, you know, we can't pump trucks or whatever. Like it references that.
That's cool.
Really cool documents.
Decisions are made, so, and there's an argument to be made that maybe that's not the best.
This is me when I retire. I'm letting it all grow long.
Let me see.
Let my hair grow out finally.
And that's how you're gonna walk around?
Yeah.
4 bars downtown.
Was like that one, he used to work in the city, I don't know if he was a chief or what, he had like a ponytail. He does.
And
If I keep eating candy, that's gonna be me when I retire.
it's not.
That's just gonna
Oh, I don't have internet.
Hey.
It's way before your day. Like when I was.
Jim wasn't big back then. There's Tina and I covered
John,
that.
We're doing
Tell them
pickleball ribbon cutting tomorrow at noon if you'd like to join.
Say it again?
Pickleball ribbon
Justin,
cutting
you about
tomorrow
ready?
at noon if you'd like
I
to
just
join.
told John to give him like 3-minute warning.
I don't know
so
if anybody
I think what we're
will
gonna do is, you're gonna shoot
Where's
videos
that?
as
Basketball
well.
It's all done.
Just so we can see it like a little closer, 'cause it's hard to
I'm
read.
working from home in the morning. When's it at noon?
Noon.
I might be able to get over there too. Write myself a
Move
reminder.
to the
That's
front
my
of the
twin
class.
sister.
Oh.
That's right, that's the pink uniform, that's right, the year before she died. This is like a year after that.
How old was she?
49. Breast cancer, that's why I was wearing that pink uniform.
Yeah. That's so sad. Do you have kids?
Nick, she only had one son. She was 4 foot
Yeah, because
2, and she never weighed more than 100 pounds her whole life, other than when she was pregnant, she was 105. Her son was 6 foot 5.
That's so funny.
You labeled this findings of fact. I don't think we should label it findings of fact when we're finished, but as we swap it out, what it should be labeled. I think it's deliberation.
and so it's gonna be different. I just, you know, in my head, I was like, the builder's got the walking through.
Oh, so did we just add it to the?
Yeah.
He was such a great
Started
artist.
on page 12.
He lived to be
Okay,
30 years old. He weighed 230.
Are you serious? Go get that. Did he get in the car and stuff himself?
When he was younger, he could. I mean, when he jumped up in the back of the car, you could feel like,
That's a long life for a dog that big.
yeah, it was. They only usually live to be 8 to
Yeah.
9.
As people begin to filter back in, we decided, so the write-up itself has a few gaps, just because Mr. Lafayette couldn't keep up. So we're gonna review actually as we return, and we're gonna go through and where we need to fill in the gaps, Mr. Dreyer's gonna fill it in, so you guys get to see us deliberate, I guess. We never turn off the camera anyway, so it's not that big, but just so you guys know what's happening, just make sure that we have everything reflected. So it's on the board up there. Those in front of the class may be able to see it. Those in the back may not be able to see it. But so does everyone have it? Mr. Dreyer sent it to us. Does all the members of council have it in front of them? So you can just kind of, what we're gonna do is, I'm not gonna read it like verbatim here, but as we kind of go through, if you see issues that you know need to be updated, I'm waiting for the head nods.
And you're free to add stuff here.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
'cause,
exactly.
You know, we didn't adjourn the hearing. You guys
No,
didn't vote
I-
on this. So if you
I
want
get
to
what, yeah, you're right. This is the way we should have done it. Yep, this is perfect.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's easier to do it the first time through where I can type quick and try to keep up.
I'm just waiting for Mr. Sense and Ms. Ferguson to make sure they have it. You need it.
I can see it. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up over there? Okay. So, 132708A, I think that reflects the discussion.
Under B, the first comments, that was yours, Mr. Terry. I think it starts off with when looking at. That was Mr.
Yeah,
Terry.
Did you mean
I don't know
Main
if I-
Street or did you mean South Chillicothe?
Oh, man.
Because you
I
meant
meant
one
Main,
street
I
goes
meant
all
Main
the way-
Street.
you meant- that-
I meant Main Street, so if we could change that to Main Street.
That's
And
why
again-
we read over this.
And again, I don't know if I'd say is not of historical significant. I would say that the vestibule does not, the historic character does not have his, like, part of the character. I don't know how to say that well. I didn't say it well the first time clearly. When looking at the profiles from Main Street, this preserves the building, while the vestibule at the back is not a part of the historic profile, is what I would say. I wouldn't say it has no historical significance since it's from 1897, apparently. You're cool with it saying that you don't think it has any? I'm sorry. You guys are laughing.
No. I'm just laughing at Justin having to go back.
Yeah, I
and
know,
read
that's
every
what
time
I
you
was
add a new word and you change it.
You said one thing you typed in and you went, oh no, let's change.
How quickly can we
Why
pass
my
that
sister was
change the appeal
yelling and
process?
looking over her shoulder.
So Okay.
Just as you guys kind of scroll through, just let us know if you see anything. I think C is fine.
I said 1897. Did you say 1895 or 7?
95.
95, that's what I have in my notes.
Hey, right there, I said it was not accurate. See, I corrected myself.
Yeah.
Mhm. Shoot. Let's scrolling that off. I think Mr. Daly's comment there is a good point under D. At the rear cornice? What's that word?
Did you say the cornice?
Under E, Mr. Daly stated that they are not building at the rear.
Same height, I think.
Oh, like,
It's this, the cornice is this detail.
I didn't even know it was a word.
You thought I... Right there is an incomplete statement. Mr. Terry states that there is repair and replacement with the removing, and I was on to the next one.
Under F?
Finish it. Yeah. With the removing. Okay.
The statement where I talk about the rear cornice, can you, instead of saying they are not building at
I-
the rear cornice, say they are building below the rear cornice? Because if you look, all their elevations at that point is below it. There's that little addition that comes in, it's below. So they won't be, they're not gonna, so they won't be touching it. Below the rear cornice, and they will remain intact.
Let me know, Justin, when you're ready. I can clean up the next one. So under F, it says Mr. Terry states there is a repair and replacement with the removing and nothing else. Should say removing of the vestibule.
You already got that. He was ahead of you. Change, adjust it with the intact, you tab it over. Thank you.
Probably significant in Mr. Senses, not significance.
Yeah. Up above.
I'm down under H, council. He wrote as himself, council, not council as in this body. We're spelled C-O-N-C-I-L. He wrote it as like legal counsel. No one on council disagrees.
Got your old timey in there.
I saw that.
Yeah, well, I did say oldie timey, if we're gonna split hairs.
I've never heard of
He
that.
cleaned it up for you.
I think
so
you're
it
supposed to say
sounded-
sick when you, S-I-C, when you
Yeah.
know that it's wrong.
But I'm okay with old time and old timey.
This is where I lost it. I didn't.
I was on I, sorry. So I'm pretty good on I. I actually think it does pretty well. Are you staying on the next part on J?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get through. I was just reading I.
You guys are jumping quick on me. It's
I
like-
have to like reread the ordinance. I'm not as familiar as.
I apologize for that one. They started talking too quick and I couldn't finish what your thought was.
I think my second point cleans it up, so you could just delete the first. I don't remember what that was either, so we can go back to the video, but really that second statement that I was focused on the fact the addition's on the outside and not the inside, therefore not as damaging. That was really my point, regardless of. You get that, Justin? Just delete the
Yeah, you got
first.
it.
Yes, sir. You-
I'm on to K.
That's right. It can be corrected later.
It's nice that I didn't say anything. So I know my point was a little longer. I'm under L, by the way. So Mr. Terry states that it must be consistent with the historic nature of the district without altering the current character of the district. So you have to be able to point out what is historic and what is not. So I believe with all that, you cannot take away from what the district was. I'm trying to clean this up a little bit too. Basically, that gets back to my point of like, you have to be able to say, we're trying to not take away from the historic nature while also being separate. Maybe just take that last sentence out. And
Well, why don't you just, you said it, so why don't you just explain it? Add to it. What you mean. Explain it more.
But you still can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mr. States that it's consistent with the historic nature of the district without altering the current character of the district. We have to be able to point out what is historic and what is not. I think that is. So for me, this kind of gets back to it, that it's not taking away the profile of the character of what it was, but it's also not pretending to be a part of the historic 1800s. Enjoy. Thanks for writing that up. And welcome to being clerk of council.
And when you say it, you mean
The vestibule.
The
The addition.
The addition.
The addition. The addition.
So the historical profile of the vestibule
Of the addition.
of the addition.
Nice things we record these meetings. I'm okay with M. I'm okay with N. I'm okay with O. I'm okay with P. And if you guys want to add anything, remember you can add to it. This is still like part, we haven't adopted the deliberations, so now that you've read it, wanna add a I concur somewhere, or I disagree somewhere, feel free. Mr. Dry, do you feel that you have it fairly represented with the updates?
Yes.
Does anyone on council, need to like re-see it, or are you comfortable with the edits that were made? I know that people were able to watch. I'm sure, of course, everyone's gonna receive a copy, of course. But is everyone comfortable with the deliberations? Because again, the next thing we would do is I would accept a motion. What, the dates are on?
This is October 5th.
Ooh, the dates are on, see? I stopped at P, but under V, findings of fact decision. Oh wait, but that's the findings of fact.
Well, it's findings, fact, and decision, you put today's date.
Okay,
We identify when the hearing was earlier.
been together a month now. So saying that, I would accept a motion to adopt the deliberations into the record.
Let me ask a question here first.
Sure.
Is, did we identify, just for the record, any conflicts with any of the requirements in the ordinances? the 13?
I believe that we will vote later based on each individual council's.
Right, I was just
Reading
wondering if
of
anybody
the-
noted a conflict with any of the elements of the code so that it could be put in as a finding of fact if it's not in there. Okay, so I myself have not found any conflict with the DRB code. So if anybody else has anything on their mind, then this would be a good time to get it in the record. So go ahead. Then
So I
I
think
would second your motion then.
well, I didn't motion, just to be clear. I said I was looking for a motion. But just to be clear, for me, I believe the deliberations reflect my thoughts. There are areas in there that we could get into that conversation about, but I do not believe there is a need to add anything for my opinion. I think the deliberations reflect my opinions accurately. To answer your question is how I'd answer it.
Okay. No, I was just looking for volunteers if they had anything on their mind.
I have one question since I couldn't see those. Did the, up under B, did the date get changed to 1895?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, okay. Then I will motion. Did somebody already motion?
No.
Okay, then I'm gonna motion that we
Except
accept or adopt this write-up.
The deliberation
Deliberation
into the record.
into record.
Second.
Mr. Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Udell,
yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Rucker,
Abstain.
Mr. Sens.
Yes.
All right, so now that is done. Now I will motion to uphold the certificate of appropriateness, COA 2211,
And affirm the decision.
affirm the decision of the DRB for certificate of appropriateness, COA 2211.
Second.
Mr. Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Udell,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Rucker,
Abstain.
Mr. Sens.
Yes.
All right, so that is that portion of the meeting. We thank everyone for their professionalism throughout all this. I know this has been long. And thank the council as well, my members and the mayor and everyone else that sat through it and went through this. Moving on to discussion. First item, Ms. Sonnet, it is your time to shine. Now, we don't have to talk about the streetscape separately from the budget if you prefer to just do it as part of the budget, or would you like to do the streetscape on its own? How would you like to?
Yeah,
Oh, that's Haley's thing. Ah, sorry, Haley.
let's
Sorry,
talk about
Haley.
streetscape before we talk about budget because it is this year's expenditures.
Okay.
In the council packet, I wrote a memo up with the bid that was received. We received one bid. All the alternates were outlined in that memo, as well as what staff is suggesting that how we go forward. If we go forward with what we're suggesting, it will complete reconstruction from the pedestrian alley around the corner up to Pioneer Pizza, and then it will allow village crews to replace the brick pavers and the planters in front of Lovejoy's Plaza. It will also-
Is that the basic one or one of the alternates?
The
The basic was just the Main Street, I think,
yeah,
with the original one. So this is one of the alternates then.
yeah, it'll
which
be
would
the
extend
base.
it around.
It'll be the base plus alternate 2, 3, and 4,
Right,
which are
okay.
the water lines and the north portion.
Okay,
And skipping out on 5 and 6.
Correct. Because 5 is just the combination of everything, including Lovejoy's. 6 is including a specialty tree planter box that was a lot more expensive than we're willing to.
So we're actually doing like 5A. Am I understanding that correct? I'm looking at your, so I'm looking
No,
at
because
your.
we're not, we're suggesting that village crews take care of in front of Lovejoy's Plaza, which is Main Street West, because the concrete's in great condition. It's just the brick pavers that need replaced, and we don't really want to rip up good concrete. And
Perfect. So 2, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B.
it's just the A of each. For the A and B are the same result, just different ways of doing it.
Okay. 2, 3A, 4A.
Correct. Plus the base.
And the total of those is 571, 060, and 96 cents.
That's correct. So we had 275 allocated. We can use 296 of our ARPA dollars plus 30,000 to replace the lighting and the bricks in front of Lovejoy's. That will give us a remaining balance in the ARPA dollars of $80,000. But it allows us to cover everything with money from this year's budget.
And then looking at the actual map, realistically, we end up with, so you said alternate 1 we skip. So we don't do 1, but we do the base bid 2, 3, and 4. So we do the water line. So basically we go from, we just talked about those buildings. So Jason James building, right? So all the way around and all the way up to Lovejoy's.
It will be a Pioneer Pizza down around.
So the interesting thing is that has it as alternate 1. So if you look at the drawings,
Yep.
the part that goes to Pioneer, they have labels alternate 1. That's why I was confused. So what you're actually saying is alternate 1, base bid 3 and 4, and not 2.
They do have it labeled differently than
You get what I'm saying?
we wanted. Yeah, we want to do
Conceptually, on the picture, you want to do
To
from
look
Pioneer
like a-
Pizza
to the pedestrian alley.
to the pedestrian alley. So that on the picture is 1, the base bid, alternate 3, alternate 4, but the numbers add up to 571, 060.
The numbers should be correct because that's what they put together in the bid packet, but I'll double check on that.
There's like a $40,000 difference. If it was 1 and 2, that would be like a $40,000 difference, just so everyone knows.
Yep.
I'm pro. I'll tell you, I've been pro. You get out there. 1, I think we've been looking for a place to use the ARPA dollars that would benefit the entire village. We figured out that the I&I, while we have to do some of it, we can't get the bang for the buck, and we spent 72,000. We're retaining another 81,000. So even if those numbers are 30, 40,000 off, we're still spending 100,000 plus on I&I. We're using the streetscape. By the time you get someone out there to dig up concrete and start a process, if we do it in pieces and parts, it's gonna be exponentially more expensive. So fiscally, I think it's responsible of us to try to do more at once. in my opinion, we're always gonna need to do from there to here. It's not dipping into, reserves. This is dipping into money that we budgeted plus money that we've been looking for a place to use. So I'm very pro this.
Well, the other thing too, look at what the businesses have done along that stretch.
Yeah, they spent.
They've spent some money on buildings that were not being very well kept in the past. They've made those buildings look nicer. How about, here's a city, we can come in and we can make that look a little bit better as well and dress it up so the sidewalk matches what the buildings have been doing. And while we're in the process, we can update some of the utilities. If you're gonna dig it up, don't dig up good concrete that's there in 3 years when we have to redo the utilities. Dig it up now if we can, if we have the money in the budget. And if we do, I say do as much as we can at that point. I like the idea of not tearing up the Lovejoys. That is not bad. There's little repairs we can do, but you can probably do that with, forced labor, workforce that we have in the community instead through the village.
And I'll let other people jump in a second. So what would this take? This would take a supplemental budget, because we're allocating ARPA to something?
Nope, we've already budgeted dollars, so.
So it doesn't, so it's just more, you're more looking, so it does not take a legislative action. You're more looking for guidance and make sure the majority of council believes this is the appropriate thing. Okay,
Yeah, if so, we'll put it on the November 14th to award the bid.
perfect. Oh, then that's where people, okay, cool. Thoughts down there?
Is this for 2022 or 23?
22.
This is 22 budget. I'm not sure they'll get started. Hopefully they'll get a little bit of work done.
The funds will be encumbered in 22.
Yeah.
This has been bid already?
Yeah.
So these aren't the engineer's estimates, these are
This is the bid.
the contractor's
This is the bid, we got
prices.
one bid.
The estimates were that far off?
You only had one bid?
I'm in agreement.
I agree with what Mr. Daly said about the building owners putting money
Yep.
into their buildings. I think that this is a perfect opportunity for us to complement those,
Be good neighbors.
And the utilities is key, getting those utilities in, so.
Okay, we will put that on the November 14th agenda to be awarded.
And what does the timeline with the Hoosier building, is that gonna be an issue?
We have been working closely with that building owner, that I'm not sure of.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the bricks become an issue there.
the bricks will be the border of that building now. So there will be the streetscape pavers as well as the historical bricks outlining the building.
Are we putting lights on North Chillicothe as well, that
Yeah.
match the downtown? Okay.
Just because, and I'm gonna ask this question, and just because of us wanting to make sure that we walk the walk and talk the talk, should our proposed streetscape plans go to DRB?
Technically, yes.
Mr. Rucker, what are your thoughts?
Technically, yes.
If you believe it should, I think we should go through and submit this to the DRB and allow it to be at least reviewed. Even though they don't vote on it, at least make them aware of it. We're asking all the building owners to put their alterations through. We're altering, so I think we should do the same.
Yep.
Okay, we'll have to look at that schedule. I don't know when
Yeah, I don't want it to slow things down, but I do think, if we're asking everyone else to do this, we should be doing it as well, just to be consistent with our partners in the uptown.
Okay.
Now, if the DRB comes back and wants changes, that's changes.
We can just appeal it, we just went through that, yeah, I got
No,
that.
I'm just saying we need to be careful, how we get that back to the DRB, because if there's changes, there'll be change orders to the contractor, and then that price will go up that we just had.
What they have to deal with every time, right?
So I'm just saying, in the future, maybe we get to the DRB before we take it to the bid.
I think, okay, stepping back a step, the DRB needs someone to go through it and clean up. I think we just need to and I think as part of the zoning code rewrite, we are cleaning up the DRB. We can put exceptions for ourselves in there, like streetscapes and things like that. I don't think those exceptions currently exist. I guess the street's not a building, so we might be able to, we might not need them to actually opine or vote. I'm just saying that we should run it past the DRB and say, here's what we're doing. And we're trying to retain the bricks and go through the same thing we make, just,
Did we do that for the first phase?
no, I think we
South
didn't,
side?
we discussed, we
And
should
it
have.
was, and it was brought up.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I'm not sure time is an issue here. I think we probably have plenty of time.
It is
because
now, but
Not
we
much
looked
is
at
gonna be
this.
done, but we're not gonna do anything substantially different with this phase than we did with the first phase, so
Yeah.
it shouldn't be an issue.
yeah, and again, I think the actual uptown's on the buildings, it's not on the streets and the sidewalks. I'm more just saying for like, we're trying to do this the right way, we're trying to maintain the uptown district, and we're trying to, be good partners, so send it through, and again, Mr. Rucker, if you don't think, you're our representative, if we don't need a vote, we more just wanna see their feedback, if they have something very drastic, like you guys are really off.
Well, I mean, I think technically it still needs a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. I'll let you and Mr. Lafayette figure
Yeah.
that part out.
I think I agree with you, Mr. Rucker. Haley, could
I
I
don't think it's gonna be
ask
an
you
issue.
Yeah,
what the
But-
plan for 2023 is for streetscapes? And how much money if you have it off the top of your head?
Yeah, we allocated more money for the streetscape next year, currently at 300,000, so we would either,
Another 3 next year.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
so it's a perfect transition, right? Let's go into the budget, and maybe we could start with the capital portion of the budget. Just to kind of like segue, because I think the direction is get a bid, and then we'll go to the budget, Mr. Reed, and we'll start with capital.
Hey, fine.
Yeah. 'Cause-
No, I was just trying to look and see if there's an opportunity to maybe put part of this part this year and budget the rest of it next year, since the work won't be done until next year anyway. So, and there could be some cash flow issues ahead of us. So I'm not ready to commit to this plan. I would be probably if it were split into 2022 and 2023, but, so let's
Ms.
just
Solomon
keep
said
it
that this
open.
money's already been allocated for this year and set aside, am I wrong?
Well, the
Yeah.
315 has, I'm not sure, or what is the?
We have the ARPA funds,
have
it's
it.
sitting in a fund.
Well, there's 275 that's said that it's in the budget.
Yeah.
The ARPA funds have not been budgeted for streetscapes yet, have they?
It's in its,
Budgeted, they've been appropriated this year.
it's in its own.
They were
fund.
appropriated.
Appropriated out of ARPA funds for the streetscapes.
They should be careful,
So
so,
that's what the issue is. If the ARPA funds have been appropriated for streetscapes, then fine. They have.
technically you just changed what it's about, because you said it was about cash flow, now it's about where they're appropriated. If you're concerned about cash flow, we have the cash, so let's put that one aside. And then the ARPA funds, the question becomes, they're already in our budget to be spent this
We
year,
have
and
the
we're,
ARPA funds, yes, but they have not been appropriated for anything to my knowledge, unless I'm wrong about that.
They were appropriated on, yes, it was not a project slated for, but they were.
It wasn't appropriated to a project.
yeah,
They were just appropriated to be spent for something.
correct,
There you go.
there you go.
Okay, so they're not appropriated to streetscapes, that's a fair statement then. So, and I see the ARPA funds on there. The ARPA funds have a universe of possible applications. And we originally locked on to using them for water infrastructure and sewers and the rest of it. That was the original plan for the ARPA funds. And now we're happy to use them to do streetscapes instead, without ever having considered any other possible need this village might have that might exceed or be more important than extending the streetscapes around the corner. And I'm not saying there is, I'm just saying we haven't even talked about any such thing. So be that as it may, if there's a chance to segregate the budgeting between 22 and 23 for this $571,000, and I'm only concerned with cash flow for this year and next year. And there is a potential for some significant cash flow items. So, thank you, Mr. Cherry.
So I think we can transition to the overall budget conversation, and we can see, I think that'll come up.
I have a short presentation if you'd like it.
I would love
Okay.
it.
I'm gonna
We
try
all
to-
like presentations with numbers.
Come on. Hey, this is my wheelhouse. Engineering was your wheelhouse. This is finance and accounting. This is my thing.
Hey, we're gonna have a party.
Yeah. And before you get into your presentation, do you have a timeline in the presentation for the budget process or, perfect, thank you. Just trying to figure out when we're going to be. I think it's still on your computer because it's got that like hazy blue. Do you need to leave? You can,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Nobody's gonna be for anything.
By the way, thank you for getting those three first readings.
Pardon me?
I was thanking Mr. Lafayette for getting the three first readings.
Okay,
No problem.
He's asking if he could leave. I said, yeah, sure.
So, short presentation, we get into budget mode. I'll stay up here, okay. Okay, so quick review of 2022. We had a few supplementals this year. There was inflation and construction costs, increased fuel costs, crew costs. Some good things though that we had were purchase of a public works garage, even though it wasn't planned. It really turned out to be great for the crew. It gave us a bonus event space that we're gonna begin renting out in January. We have some new staff positions this year. We have several vacant positions throughout the year. Strong income tax revenues that will be updated. Probably need one more supplemental budget this year to reflect those accurate revenues, balances. Like to allocate money for the Maple Street bridge repairs. Make sure the engineer should get us the proposal by the end of this week, so we'll have to move that money over. As well as a couple of minor things we just need to clean up, so we can go forward with the 2023 budget currently. So just to review council's priorities that were set earlier this year, we're gonna begin the wastewater treatment plant construction, complete a Parks and Rec master plan, implement the uptown design plan, the branding study, finish the new website, create more connectivity and focus on the Heritage Trail. We did our best to reflect all of these priorities in next year's budget throughout several different departments. Administration has the same goals as council, just some high level things. We're focused on our infrastructure, making sure our residents have safe roads and streets, as well as working water and sewer. We have several economic development initiatives that are going to be kicking off next year. We have the staffing in place now, so we can get those started. We really want to support the community, maintain our services from PD to leaf collection, and there are some more personnel adjustments that may occur, as well as getting the new staff just comfortable in their role and going forward with their objectives. For our account balances, we're focusing on transferring carefully, making sure balances don't grow too far, making sure that this year we get an accurate reflection of how much is left, spending carefully and then replenishing only when needed instead of transferring too much and then just having account balances sit there or be spent on things that they don't need to be spent on.
Help me understand transferring carefully. What do you mean by transferring carefully?
So, we could technically make everybody's account balances very large, but once it's in there, it can't be transferred back out. So we wanted to just make sure that we don't take money out of the general fund that could be used for other purposes, and have it just sitting in accounts and spend on something, or just sitting there from year to year.
So deliberate transfers out of the general fund into the Parks and Rec, the police and fire, the water and sewer.
Correct.
A little more transparency. Perfect.
Yeah, this is just an overview of what the budget that was submitted to you looks like. It's very close on revenues and expenditures. We have I think it's $27,000 difference. We can talk about that. Our revenues may be adjusted. This ending fund balance, I think, from the end of the year will be adjusted based on higher than expected income tax revenues.
Yeah, so I think for me, like I by the way, this is awesome. For me, I always like to see like what it actually was too. Like, so like the revenues, were they really 3.4? What were the revenues actually? Do we know?
They're higher than this right now.
Yeah, so I think that's the meaningful thing is like, what were the revenues actually?
Yeah.
Because the budget is kind of like a best estimate, right? I'd love to see, you know, what the actual, maybe you have it in here, what the actual revenues were and the actual expenditures, but perfect.
Yeah, and I think if we, we'll start working on that supplemental right probably tomorrow, and then just get all those numbers in year to date, so we can definitely be working on the actual numbers.
Yeah, because, and again, just to the point, like, right, that looks like $1 million deficit, and I don't think we actually were at $1 million, but I'd like to know what we actually were, you know, like, that would be the pertinent thing, so, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we had a couple, I would like to update what we actually spent on projects. You know, next year we want to focus on just biting off what we can chew. This year we had a lot of money allocated for a lot of different projects, and we only have so many staff members. So a lot of things are getting moved over, so we just want to make sure we're being a little bit more accurate that way, and we'll update that in the supplemental and be able to work off that and not have double the amount of projects next year, but really just prioritizing what we want to see get done and what we realistically can get done.
And then, so the ending fund balance of 1.7, that is what we will have in the end of fiscal 23 in the general fund, correct? Yeah, and me and Mr. Reed and Ms. Ferguson had a conversation about that. So, you know, if you just kind of divide that by expenditures, right, that gives us a nice cushion of, what is that, 4, 5, 6 months? 6 months. And that feels right. You know, that's what they always tell me I should have in my savings account. So 6 months feels right. I think that could be a debate, but, and also some of those expenditures are capital, right? If we ever really had a shortfall, a major recession or something, we would cut capital before we cut personnel or anything like that, so.
We'll probably also use the new year to work on the fund balance policy.
Yeah, it would be good to like if we could have some sort, whatever you guys professionally feel is appropriate of, and I would focus it on operating, not of all, because capital kind of you can just push. But it does feel right, I mean.
Yeah, that's something that's a goal for next year. We had about 70 houses to this point built in 2022. Most of those are in Madison Meadows. Some of those don't necessarily generate the impact fees that future developments will, because they were exempt or they were approved before the impact fees got approved and part of the development. Past fees, however, are coming in. We should have about $1.8 million this year. That includes sewer and water. We'll have increased income tax revenue from those houses, as well as property tax revenue. It's a little harder to estimate because you're not sure when the auditors can pick up the full value, but for every $400,000 house, we receive about $860 a year
In property tax?
in property tax. So
860
We get very small
for
portion.
each new home, like
Yeah.
single family home?
You
if it's valued all the way to that amount, yeah.
Okay, the 70 was for this year
That's
that
how
you've
many houses
added?
were built this year.
Are you thinking about how many we're gonna add next year?
Yeah, we have about 359 to be.
I think, to Mr. Terry's point, those should be included in the revenue projection. That's gonna make a huge difference. Well, a good sized difference.
It is.
Okay,
It's
So,
not fully out to 359 because it does depend when people move in and all of that, but we have accounted for that.
okay, and they'll be coming online at various times. too.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a little tricky
Yeah.
to estimate it, but we can improve the revenue projections by
Yeah.
taking account of that.
It's tough,
Thank
yeah,
you.
for sure. You gotta know when when it's gonna build, when they're gonna move in, and if they actually realize they owe income tax in the city the first year, they forget.
So right now, we have the estimated income tax from the 70 new houses because we know those people are moved in, plus the 2% increase. So I could see the income tax estimate being increased, but we also want to be conservative. So we could.
Okay, I appreciate what you said, we want to be conservative, but let's ask Mr. Terry this question, he's the financial guy. How conservative do we need to be?
So for me, I think I want to be as accurate as possible in our budgeting process, okay, from both sides. Any sort of budget is an estimate, right? So even, say we had, what was the number, 300 houses next year? So 300. So even if you put and said, okay, 150 of those will be built, like, you guys say, like, we build them like this throughout this time at this level. I think we should, include some of that revenue and but what I would do is I wouldn't include it on an expense side and just let the fund grow. And if they move in later or they, those houses stop or, we keep having a problem, all that's going to happen is that we're going to get back to this 1.7. So if this is really what we expect to see from an expenditure side, let's get our revenue there and then we'll say, okay, we're all comfortable with this. And you almost kind of like stress test it, like a good, better, best, right, sort of scenario or scenario analysis and say, okay, this is scenario A is what we're all comfortable with. However, we could have revenues of scenario B, and if halfway through the year, our revenues are tracking through scenario B, then you have a few, capital projects in your back pocket that say, well, now we could do these things, but I don't want to budget or start spending that in the first half in case we're leaning towards like A scenario as opposed to B or C. So I think just stress testing it and say, here's what we're suggesting as a budget, but we also think it could come in at B, and if it does come in at B, midway through the year, our dog park's gonna be twice the size or something. I don't know.
I think that's great. This would be scenario A.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, good, better, best. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Well, is there a way that we can look back at the previous subdivisions that were done and seeing how quick they built and how quick we had this revenue coming in as a target that, hey, this is what we had.
Yeah.
We can use that as an example. We don't have to follow that exactly, but hey, we can see the trend was there.
Absolutely. But what I think what they're trying to convey, what I'm trying to convey is certainly, but let's not spend the money. Like let's estimate the revenue side, but not spend the money. Also, income tax 1%. I pay 1.5%. Am I getting charged an extra 0.5%? That goes into another fund. Oh yeah, because it's capital. That's right. Okay. I was like, wait a second. I swear John's making me pay 1.5%. But I think that's the right way to do it is keep the expenditures here, and then if we do it that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because it does align too with how much we can actually get done. This would be scenario A. And then, like we could have another vendor. Here's where the general fund expenditures go to, just for some information. Other things include, like legal, what's another? Sorry, it's really small.
It is.
This is all on your spreadsheet too, it's just.
So, consultant service, contractual. Because what are types of things that go in contractual? Maybe that'll be helpful.
Contractual is like our IT, it'd be like the engineering, prosecution. Consultants more like, the pastime park plan, or economic development feasibility study, website design, all of it.
Yeah, and as we grow here, as we scale, we're just gonna have to keep balancing of when does it make sense to in-house these versus contractual. The nice thing about contractual is if we have a rough year, we can cut it, it's a consultant, it's not an internal person, and once you have that person on staff, it's just harder, so I know that we spend a little extra to do that, but we also get more expertise, so. Makes sense.
So some of the personnel, just high-level personnel overview for this year, we had some cost savings. We didn't hire economic development manager till mid-year. We budgeted still based on the salary survey last year, the finance positions, but haven't needed to fill those yet. Management analyst position's been open all year. These aren't all ideal or we're planned for it, it's just realistically money that we have saved because that happened. New costs in 2023, from the memo, if we implement the compensation study as recommended, it was $328,000. We'll be fully staffed next year, once we hire a zoning inspector and utility clerk. We hope to fill those in the next couple of weeks, so those will be full year salaries. Well, it's hard to tell what will happen next year, but as of right now, we don't have any open positions, or hopefully won't as of January 1st. And then if we do a cost of living increase, that would be.
Did the expenditures that you showed for fiscal 23 budget assume the full implementation of the compensation study?
Right now, that number is reflected.
And we'll have a discussion on the compensation study separate from this?
So we're gonna have a building inspector here, so we don't have to go through West Jeff anymore? Is that what you said?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We probably could though. Economic development proposals, these are all included in the budget. Exciting stuff. Jason's really working hard on completing some council objectives that we've been talking about forever, and now we can finally get started on. For the corridor study, an economic development strategy, like I noted last week, Madison County's completing theirs, so we may be able to piggyback. We may find an incentive of doing our own. We are putting $200,000 aside for land acquisition fund, so we can let that fund build up, and there's a property in the future that we wish to purchase, we can have that money available.
That's a great idea.
Jason's proposing a storefront enhancement grant, some money for marketing promotions, potentially partnering with Works on their summer internship, and then the money associated with establishing a CIC.
So does this mean that we will no longer be associating with Madison County?
Economic development?
Yeah.
We have had meetings with them, but Jason's really our lead now of making sure the village's priorities are at the forefront.
So I won't have to go to Madison County future meetings anymore?
I don't know.
Do you want to go or don't want to go?
Well, I'm just wondering, are we still gonna be members of Madison County CIC?
I'll let me ask Jason that.
Because I mean, if we're already part of a CIC, do we need to reinvent that wheel?
I think he's working right now on a pros and cons list to bring to council soon. He just wanted this number budgeted just in case we go along with that.
Yeah, I think it's a really, and I brought this up to Mr. Stanford. He just got, and he's hitting it, but I think a work session where he comes and explains this all to us, kind of presents, kind of like Linda does with the parks. Just let him. I think is a good January, February. But we have it in the budget, right? You budget it if we don't, we go a different direction. We go a different direction.
Well, I mean, I think we should still be involved with Madison, so we know what's going on. Just like I go to the Union County one, we need to know what's going on next to us.
Sure. I'm just saying that it's unfair to say we're going to be in or out without him kind of like opining, right?
So some infrastructure priorities. Currently have Maple Street repairs in there, but hopefully, like I said, the engineer has a proposal done. ODOT's given their blessing on it. They're putting together a bid package right now, so we may be able to hopefully do that this year. So that number will drop down. Repaving streets, streetscape, those numbers will remain the same. Some additional I&I work, water valve maintenance, and then the big project we're proposing next year is to pave curb, storm drains in the parking lot that is behind the old admin building underneath the water tower to make that support the south side of Main Street with parking. Currently, it's just a gravel lot and not a lot of storm drainage or structure back there, so we would take the zoning office down and make that a better use of that space.
How many spots do you guys think you can get? Do you have any guesstimate?
That's a good question. I'll have to check
And again, budgeting it versus bidding it and everything, I get it's different, but
Yeah, the building owner's engineer gave us a rough draft, so I can consult that and see if we have a conversation.
it would basically go from where we have now. So we have those few spots, right? And then you said rip down the old zoning office, and then the water tower is like right there. So would we be going all the way back to our new building that we have?
Yeah, it's kind of like right off the alley, between the two buildings underneath the tree and then back towards the zoning. And then there's always trucks parked back there, but that's technically our land, so we would do all that.
Is it where it's fenced in, the fenced in area too?
No, not the fencing area.
Okay.
We'll leave that for this building.
We should talk to them and see what they want to do with it.
But that's our fenced in area now.
Oh, that's ours?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's on the other side of the water tower.
Yeah.
But it might be open to.
I mean, for me, parking is not fun, but it's so critical for like the success of the uptown area, to like these festivals we have, like everything we do, and we're never gonna get more land like for this, like, and the more we invest and we have more businesses moving and everything, it's always gonna require parking. So it's
And
what we
even-
should be doing.
And even though it's on the other side of the water tower, it's still, I don't know what the other planned uses of that space is.
Has there been any consideration given in one of these, to at some point extending the West Avenue sidewalks?
Yeah, I met with Randy Van Tilburg a few weeks ago on that. The main issue is that culvert.
I know, that's,
Where we put that bridge, but we were starting to solve that and try to.
'cause I mean, that's a major,
Yeah.
that's a major issue with trying to turn us into a walking,
We talk about connectivity, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one for connectivity. You can't get from one side of town
From
to
there
the
to
other.
there, I concur with that opinion, Mr. Rucker, and I was prepared to mention that, the pedestrian walkways throughout the village. West Avenue is one place, Perry Pike, where it extends across, they don't have any sidewalks over there. So,
Jefferson.
and we have new developments going in, they're gonna wanna walk to 42. 42 has no safe pedestrian walkways.
My only thing was Perry Pike, that part of that
It's
is
not
not
village,
in the
that's
village.
correct, but that's just an issue, that's an issue to solve. Doing that, they would probably welcome the sidewalk, especially on the housing side. So, but the other place is 42. 42 does not have safe walkways. People can't get across 42 at the light. And I think the mayor has mentioned that before. That these all are issues that are just important as extra money into streetscapes. And I don't mean to hack on streetscapes, I'm all for streetscapes, but we have some really, really, really important infrastructure issues that could be addressed,
So
at least in part.
So I don't disagree with you, and I think there's always going to be scarce resources to like the undeniable demand of all of this, right? So the way I think about this a little bit is like our process was we started the streetscapes, we've invested in the uptown, we did an uptown map plan, we're implementing that plan. After the streetscapes and after this parking improvements, 100% we have to switch our focus outside of the uptown because we've done so much there other than maybe those utility poles, but that's a dream in the future. But this year we are trying to do a connectivity study, right? No?
Yeah.
Yes.
With the corridors.
So what I would love to see is that corridor study, just like the uptown and the comp plan spurred the investment in the uptown, that the connectivity would spur in the fiscal 24 budget, that we shift our focus to and they prioritize and say how to do it. I don't want to start paving things and throwing down sidewalks if it doesn't make sense from a professional that's looked at it and said, here's how you should connect your city. I clearly think West Avenue should have that connectivity too. I live right there, so, and certainly 42, you can't walk to the bowling alley and those residents, but I'm hesitant to start spending a lot of money in those areas before we have someone look at it and tell us how to do it.
Mr. Terry, I appreciate your comments. What's different between streetscapes and the pedestrian walkways is a safety issue. I can't identify a safety issue with streetscapes that's urgent to get fixed. There is a definite safety issue with pedestrian walkways. You cannot, when people walk on West Street and they get in the street to get around the bridge, okay? It's a hot button, at least for the people who walk on West Avenue.
So let me ask two follow-ups. One, the continued work on streetscape, what would that be?
It's council's decision, but it can either be the east-north or the southeast. We would probably suggest the southeast because the northeast, while it really looks bad and it's crumbling, if that area does change, if the parking lot gets maybe to a green space or something, that might adjust where the street.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
terrible
there's a
direction.
lot of things that can happen. The Masonic Lodge.
Don't do there,
Or
yeah.
the clock tower.
Don't do there, go up and do the other side, or do that.
Go to Clock Tower corner would be the southeast.
Start with the clock, so that would be, and again, just kind of ballpark, we just spent, we're thinking about spending 600,000, that would get us to there, so we should be able to do the wrap around of the clock tower for 300. Okay,
And since we're
so
not.
we'd still have some more to do.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't touch that northeast corner right now because
Masonic Lodge corner.
there's still a lot of things
Yeah, and I
in
think,
flux with that whole block, I think.
we might look into our public works just repairing some of the concrete or something, but no major investment.
And do we have to go the other way anymore, so across from Lovejoy Plaza? Is there anything there that we need to do, or we're done on that side?
You could technically go another block. You could also go south of the Park Bank.
You could technically go all the way to the library on that side and bring it all together and
Right,
tie it in.
Hospital.
And so when you look down the street, you would see this all done and it all has a look. And then when it starts to bend the corner, that's where you sort of get away from that.
So the lights right now on the one side and at the alley, right?
They end up being full.
Lane of Maple, and across the street, that's basically the pedestrian. So either we kind of say that's the end, or we extend it and do lights, okay.
And then there's grants that might be available out there for the streetscaping or even, safe routes to schools. You can look at those grants and different things we have. I don't know what the connectivity how it was from over here to over there would work, but that might help out. Dealing with that bridge, the huge problem you got there is that culvert's on such a skew. That bridge is gonna be so long, it's there.
Yeah.
And so I've looked at that already to see how we can fit something in there.
So,
I thought about it.
so that was, so what bridge are you talking about?
The one that's right
West
outside.
Avenue.
The West Avenue
Right on
bridge,
West
okay.
Ave. That has no way of anybody getting through it.
No, you have to do the pedestrian bridge or something, I think.
Yeah, and you can, City of Groveport has got one right outside of their downtown. It's along the roadway, but they're called Continentals. There's these prefab bridges that you all have to use but the abutments and you drop it on. And you see that a lot. Dublin's had some of those in certain areas. You just got to get the path to and you got to find the area to get to. When you're dealing with Maple Street, when ODOT talks to you, ask them if there's any emergency funding that can help our little village out, like, hey, well, we're such a small village and this is emergency. They might be able to help us out in that aspect.
And then, perfect, and then the Maple Street repairs, that's the bridge that is out now.
Yeah.
And you were talking about a little bit about it. This would get us, 50,000 would get us what? Buy us 3 years, buy us 10 years, total
Get
refix.
you a couple 204s across the street.
Yeah, what does 50,000 get me?
Talking with Manikin Smith and their engineers, because I was out there on Saturday with them looking at the structure. What they're looking for and the intent that they're looking for is to get us to that 2025 if we get that grant money.
Get to the grant
We
money.
have not been given that grant money though, have we?
No, we've not been awarded.
Yeah, we haven't been awarded it yet.
So this
But
gets us
that-
to the.
And that money I know cannot be expedited up. I've already asked the question with people down the road. Can that money be expended? It can't. So what we're trying to do is get this bridge opened up because that bridge can't stay closed. It's a connector for us. It's important to the community, and so talking with our city engineer, they understand that. So they're going to try to come up with something that would get us to 3 years, 4 years, fix on this. If you have not been underneath that, it is.
Let's assume I haven't.
It's
I
a
go under
steel
there all
beam.
the
It's a
time,
steel
but
beam
you
bridge.
don't
And so real quick. It's a steel beam bridge that they're spaced about every 30 inches. There's a steel beam with timbers on top for the deck with asphalt. What's happened is a steel beam. If you look at it, it's an I-beam. It's the web, which is the middle, has come undone from the bottom flange, and it looks like a zipper. It's zipped out like this, and so there's a hole. You can stick a screwdriver right through that, and that's why they had to close the bridge. We're looking to see how they can put some blocking or some shoring that's in there and they'll probably do every beam, I'm guessing, because they don't want to just do the ones that are damaged. Let's make sure it works for the whole 3 years. We don't have to keep coming back out there. That's what, I'm assuming that's what they're gonna do. So that is why it's
take
closed.
that cost down, because we can spend it this year, and then, that money could go to Safe Route to Schools, figuring out West Avenue or engineering for something like that. We'd totally be open to that, doing that project.
For reference, the last 2 years, how much do we spend on the repaved streets? Is that 300,000 an uptick or downtick or
Same,
flat?
I believe.
So,
I think it's the same, consistent.
thank you.
Ms. Lupton, let me ask just about one more project that's been on the table for a while, and that's the roundabout at Converse Huff in South Chillicothe. I noticed that in the CIP thing, it's not gonna happen real fast, like 2024 or something like that. So we're continuing to have accidents at that intersection. Chief, I'm sure you are aware of the most recent one, which was pretty ugly. I happened to drive by it when it happened. So is there a way to, because the money's there, we have the money.
Rumble strips would be a helpful thing there, I
But
think.
the problem is,
Approaching the stop signs.
it's only our portion that's there.
It's the Madison County Engineers project.
I believe they have it as 2026.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Reed, at all. It's
I know.
crazy, 100%. It's just, we're not paying it, like,
I hear you. No, we
we
don't
yell at
have,
Madison, we have to yell at Madison County engineers and say, move that up.
right. I think it's an important safety problem. It's
Yeah,
been
you're not
that way
wrong.
for a long time. And Chief says he's done everything he can do with signage and flashing lights to,
There's a lot of lights out there, but I mean, it just comes down to
Would rumble strips
drivers.
be feasible though? I mean,
Yeah.
on the approach?
I don't know.
I don't know what you can do.
I mean,
honestly.
people have,
It's crazy.
but we kind of
The
wait.
thing is, it doesn't even look like there's a sight distance problem when you come up
There's
on
not.
that. I don't know what else you could do, Chief, to be out there. You've got signs, you've got stop signs, you've got.
I still hesitate, every time I go through, I'm like
And here
staring at
lately,
everyone at the
there's
stop
been
signs, like, don't do anything, guys, like.
Here recently, there's been an uptick a little bit in accidents out there because a year ago, I could have told you that we have more accidents in front of Plain City Library than we do out there.
Yep.
But here lately, I don't know what it is, they've gone up a little bit. And it's not people usually that are from here
Yeah,
that causes the accident, so.
right,
I mean,
Whatever
we were just
to
out on one
clarify.
here not too long ago that was pretty bad. And
is the $500,000 that we have in the bank for that project, that's our money?
That's our money from the Darby Fields development.
Okay, right, that's the impact, whatever it is. So what do we need to do to get that started? We need money from Madison County then too?
No,
Their project.
This is
Their
Madison
project.
County project because that is on a county road. We won't have anything on the design. It's gotta come
Okay,
from Madison
so
County.
we've done everything financially that we can do for that project. It's just a matter of getting Madison County off the dime,
Call
okay? So put that on your to-do list, if you will.
See if we can expedite it.
Almost are doomed. Get on.
Go run, dude.
Okay, but yeah, we would be open to exploring how much engineering for, West Avenue or, the Cross Bridge too would be, including that in the budget this year, next year. Parks and Rec, couple big projects, the feasibility study we hope to complete if still needed, or, in the past even couple weeks, some things are happening, so that money's still, we have to spend on Heritage Trail, right now we're planning to do the study, but that's from the capital grant from the state of Ohio. The Madison Meadows Park was technically in this year's budget, and the supplemental will be moved to next year's because that land was not ready to begin installing anything on this year. They're proposing to rehab the south shelter, install additional concrete pad pool. Right now the drainage is terrible and it gets really muddy. Farmer market upgrades, but we would get the Union County Health Department grant for that. And then focus on events. Right now we have 40,000 in the budget that's currently in front of you. However, we may need to increase that number based on the number of events that we have taken on and the amount of things that go into those events.
If the council, let me just say one thing here. If council agrees that events are important to the overall culture of the village, and I think we do, then I think Parks and Rec can be nudged to spend that money and make presentations or something, give us, the information and a program, a plan for those events, and it's probably would be good to go if it's not $500,000.
That money right now, they're estimating 65,000. 30 or 50% of that is fireworks and safety that goes into the Fourth of July. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we had the Parks and Rec roundtable the other day, like, these are kind of stopgaps to a bigger, like, if we've got to redesign, if we're gonna do something, but that's why I love the idea of like putting $200,000 away for, we call it, acquisition, right? It could be parkland acquisition. I'm not gonna disagree with the Parks and Rec department group if this is what they wanna do. I just, it's just, at some point, we still have that bigger question, but we're probably not gonna pay for it out of this year's budget, so.
Right.
So we also have come up with a debt retirement schedule. I can send that out if you're interested. This is just the 5 years, and it's reflected in the debt payments.
Explain this to us like we're 5.
I might need Renee's help. This is all of our current liabilities, including the new note that was recently taken out. And this is just a small portion of the longer schedule. It's just the estimated payments towards principal and interest of those liabilities. We hope on the 2022 note to make bigger payments as the capacity fees and everything come in, and then eventually that will be transferred to the district, the sewer water portion of it.
What might be helpful for us, and I don't know if others this is computing for them, is just like a bar graph of here's our debt structure, and 7 years out, here's what our debt structure goes down. Is it going like this? Is it going like this? Is it going like this? And just like those little things, like, okay, green is the note here and just grows, whatever, just to kind of look at that and see what the structure is, just because it's hard for me to, like, if you say like this is part of a larger, it's hard for me to take a lot from this presentation.
Yeah, and we've talked some internally about adding account balances and everything into the debt retirement page so we can have a better idea.
And it doesn't need to come to us necessarily, just go to personnel finance if that works better.
So this is last slide, budget calendar. If there are no major changes, PNF had their review on October 19th. We made a couple adjustments to presentation and to the budget based on that discussion. Overall, it's about the same. Tonight's November 2nd, council work session review. PNF has agreed to meet next Wednesday if needed. But I think I'd rather not, it was tentative, but we can if we need to. And then we have first reading on 14th or the 28th with adoption.
So, Ms. Giamo, do you guys want this going back to personal finance?
I mean, personally, I think we all felt confident with the review we did and the questions that were asked and answered between Ms. Lupton and Ms. Sonnet. I think the general consensus was it probably doesn't need to come back unless there's a major change or concern. That's why we scheduled the 9th, the meeting on the 9th, but we all felt comfortable with presenting it to council and having it be deliberated.
Yeah, my only concern and my only question is, have you guys dug into the comp study? Because it's $328,000 increase in here. Have you guys dug into that already? And are you comfortable? Is the personal finance? I don't know if you guys voted on it or passed it, or maybe I ask you to. Like, are you guys comfortable with that? Because I don't know if we've really discussed it at all at this level. So I want to make sure you guys have and look through it.
Yeah, I mean, I made some notes for discussion. I don't want to just like kick people off the stage.
No.
You're done.
That's why you're invited here. Everyone knows Lauren, right? She's on personal finance.
Yeah, just Mayor Carney, members of council, for the record, I'm Lauren Giamo, and I am one of the members of the Personnel and Finance Committee. And I did have a few brief comments, but I did just want to start by saying thank you for the invitation on behalf of the other members and myself. I think if you don't know, 3 of us, we have very unique backgrounds that we each bring to the personnel and finance discussion. Me with state budgeting, Ms. Paula with educational finance, and then Justin Brammer, he comes from private sector finance. So we each bring a unique point of view to each discussion. And I would say I would feel confident saying we each feel very secure with Ms. Lupton and Ms. Sonnet at the helm of the budget wheel, so to speak. But a couple of things we did discuss, and I would just like to point out, I think something that was shared by all of us was we think this budget really shows a lot of growth and progress for the city. We think it shows hard work, investment in the community, obviously being good neighbors like we discussed. I'm not going to go over things you've already mentioned, but streetscape, sewer, obviously those are things that are ongoing. But one thing I did want to point out is the comp study. That was something that has obviously been discussed over the years, but we each felt was very important to us because we have a concern as Plain City grows. We need strong recruitment and retention for the police force. And we don't want people looking elsewhere when we have such a strong police force here and we all feel so comfortable with them and the work that they are currently doing, and even just having Chief explain some of the work they've done with initiatives he's put into place since he became Chief. I think it is an important investment to us. I think in the grand scheme of things, $300,000 does not seem large over time when we're talking about keeping good police officers in Plain City and then getting them to come to Plain City. Because I know we all got sick of hearing about West Jeff. We always made that joke, like we're tired of hearing about West Jeff. But the thing is,
For sure, the $300,000 not for the police.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask that question in a second.
I was about to ask that question too.
Yeah.
No, but
Chief got to you guys too.
yes, but obviously, just comparison with other local police forces, we saw that there would potentially be opportunity for people to look elsewhere, and we didn't want them to make that decision. People are choosing to stay in Plain City because they love Plain City and want to invest. And so we felt like the compensation study makes our police force stronger and gives them something to really reach out to folks and sell them on Plain City. They can drive around and see Plain City is great and want to be here, but if funding potentially isn't there, if they can go somewhere else and start off at a higher rate, I mean, money talks. So we felt comfortable with that. And just as a last personal note, once again, I just want to thank Ms. Lupton and Ms. Sonnet for their hard work. I think you should feel very confident having the budget in their hands. I know we do. And if you have any questions, they've answered them for us and gotten us what we need as quickly as possible. They're doing good work, and you should feel good about that.
So you guys, perfect. Thank you. By the way, thank you guys. Two things. One, for coming here tonight, and also for serving on those committees. Like, obviously, I know you, Lauren, well, but the whole committee, you can thank them all. Melissa, I was on that committee. You know, I know that they do hard work. So,
And you know Melissa's thorough. So
yeah, exactly.
It's gotten better since you got off.
Yes, trust me. The less committees I can be on, the better for everyone.
Yes.
So you guys have had an opportunity to review it. To Mr. Reed's point, so did you guys kind of review like all the different capital projects and select some and help commit to the selection and went towards the streetscapes and other investments? Like, how did you guys kind of have that capital discussion?
Sure. So our last meeting, we went through what Haley is going through with you now.
Perfect. Yeah.
So she went through the entire kind of slide with us. We went through all the line items, kind of in different budget sections to see where we were at with funds. We did look into some specific capital projects. We felt comfortable with where they were really choosing to go in the future. We agreed with some of the street work. Obviously, we are concerned about connectivity as well, but that's something that will be invested in the future. As far as the comm study, our previous meeting before that, we did have an in-depth meeting on the comp study. I think maybe like 2.5 hours, 3 hours we were there, going over that and the research behind it and what all went into it. So I feel like we had our questions and concerns answered. Like I said, Ms. Paulum is very thorough, and I appreciate that about her, and she asks a lot of questions probably any of you might have. Ms. Ferguson, I'm sure, can agree to that. Ms. Palm's very thorough, and she asked a lot of questions about the comp study and even just admin and updating the administration handbook as far as days off and maternity leave, things to that sort, and updating it to a proper level, if you will. So, yes, we are very in-depth with the comp study. Obviously, I had already had some time with it from previous work, but Justin and Melissa got caught up and they were in agreement, yes, move forward. We also felt confident with the projects, we have no issue. So I think that's why we were hesitant to potentially have it come back to us unless there was a major need.
Okay.
But we are open to meet, so if anything is needed out of that, we're happy to meet, but we just felt confident in the process and the work that had already been done, and we're on a good track, so we felt good about it.
I mean, I don't personally think you guys need to meet unless you guys, if you guys are comfortable, like, I like to always have the residents have the view, the personal finance.
And I'll defer to Ms. Ferguson too, since she's here. If you felt comfortable, I mean, I think Ms. Ferguson was in agreement with the rest of us that we felt good about where we left it.
Cool. Yeah, because I mean, it's certainly, let's be clear, I think the council still needs an opportunity to review that comp study and understand which positions are moving, how much Chief's getting, figure out where it is.
And I will say there is some in-depth stuff to that because there was some work that had to be changed with the positions and the numbering, so you should do in-depth.
Yeah, and again, comp's always tough because like 100% we want to retain the best employees, both at the staff level, the police, everywhere, administration, all the way up to Haley. It is one of those things that we can keep chasing forever, right? We're gonna chase it forever, and we can't outprice. We've got to be realistic. When you're talking $300,000 of a $3.7 million budget, it is significant. We need to spend the time and do the due diligence. Saying that, of course, everyone here wants to retain the best employees possible and make sure we get to a thing. We just have to figure out how to achieve both of those. But I'm glad you guys have spent time. I think we still need to spend the time. But
I would also say there's probably some discussion that needs to be had about just maintaining an effort to increase. I think something that the chief and the lieutenant pointed out to us more than once was we're way behind, and that's why we're having to kind of make some major jumps to catch up. So I think if we can kind of make this change and then be cognizant moving forward, we're going to need to maintain efforts, or else we're going to be in the same position we're currently in.
Basically, if we keep waiting 3 years to do a compensation study, there's always gonna be a sticker shock
We're always
that third year. Because everybody else is basically doing a COLA raise every year or something, so to keep up, and we don't do that, so I think that's why there's such a sticker shock this year.
and I think again, we're not talking about the comp study right now. But I think we as a council and even previous versions of the council have understood that like we were so far out of step that we've had to move those step increases. And I do thank all the staff and the police and the water, everyone on the org chart for taking the time with us as we try to like do something every year and get us towards that, because I think we can't rip it off all at once, or we don't get to do things like streetscapes and stuff. So, but we can talk about that in the future. So sorry, Ms. Lupton, to totally derail your
No, that's
presentation.
okay.
And thank you
This is
again.
it.
Yeah.
This is the last slide, so that's fine.
So something you didn't hit on, staffing.
Mhm.
I think you hit on it very briefly at the beginning. No new headcount additions?
No, we still have the finance clerk and the maintenance technician technically allocated, but we are gonna wait till, future parklands complete and everything before moving forward.
Maintenance tech in the
Public Works.
with Public Works?
So technically we could fill it if we wanted to. We're gonna keep that money allocated for that, but
Who is
no one knew.
who is Ms. Sonnet's backup right now if we don't have a finance clerk? Justin, do you have an accounting degree over there?
And you want.
Justin's gonna sit at a budget training with me.
We'll
tomorrow.
have John jump in. With it.
Yeah.
I always, you guys, it's your department, it's your guys' administration. I always recommend thinking about that backup and and thinking about that support. I get it that, maybe there's not a full need right now, but something, it's just one of those areas we've had a gap for a long time.
I believe Haley and I have discussed about options for maybe the utility clerk kind of backfilling some of those roles.
Yeah,
with the
invoice
income tax
processing,
And
yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of do a little bit of,
yeah, and certainly if you guys decide like upgrading, like if you take the utility clerk or whatever position you guys are filling and upgrade it to be more of a, like a management analyst type role, which is more hybrid, covering multiple, that'll fill their 40 hours while also filling in some key gaps. So I think that would make a lot of sense. If you use that money and said, okay, well, instead I'm gonna combine these positions and upgrade the talent level or something.
Yeah.
So.
And then I have a question, like, so if we're thinking we're gonna have about 300 homes come online, would that trigger then, like, in the later part of the year, a new officer?
It could, definitely, yeah.
And that's we have that almost on a percentage basis, right? We have that,
There's a study, yeah.
did we switch to like a coverage, like a,
Yeah, there's like an impact.
Impact.
Yeah,
We did an impact study, I worked with Nathan on that actually, and we came up with an impact study on that, and basically how many people we get, how many officers we're gonna get, stuff like that.
I do like that just because it becomes more.
And we're
like-
still on path, we're kind of behind because actually I thought more houses would be already built this year.
Okay,
But so I talked to Haley about this and maybe like see where we're at toward the fall of next year, or right after summer. Because honestly, it takes a good 3 months to even hire somebody and get them in here. So we're looking at toward the end of next year, maybe hiring another officer. So that's why we hadn't actually put it in the budget at this time.
So how many are you
I like
gonna
the way it
lose
triggers.
next year? Just by
What's that?
attrition, how many are you gonna lose next year just by attrition? Or,
I can't hear you.
anybody
Oh.
retiring next year?
how many officers do you think you might lose next year just by attrition? Or normal behavior?
I don't want to answer that because I don't know. I mean, I do know there's nobody other than myself that can retire.
Yeah, I mean, just on average, what would you expect?
None,
Okay.
other than myself.
he's gonna retire.
I concur with that.
So I'm not just saying I'm retiring next year. I'm just saying I can retire next year.
All right. Haley, I have a question for you. When you use the word allocated, is that the same as appropriated funds for those
Yes.
positions?
Yeah,
Are those funds then encumbered in the budget, so they wouldn't show up as available in 2023?
payroll's not encumbered.
Pardon me?
Payroll is not encumbered.
Well, allocations are, though. And
it's in that number under salaries,
And
yeah.
the salaries
If it's
can't
carried
go
over,
anywhere else, and
It's
so it's in there.
all right, so we're gonna do a new appropriation for those positions in 2023, so you don't have to carry that over. You understand what I'm
You're talking about the
saying?
finance clerk?
That
Yeah,
some-
those numbers are included again in the next year.
Yeah, okay, they'll be reappropriated
Yeah.
for 2023. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and the other question is, when Renee finished closing the year end for 2022, do we not have to do a supplementary budget to update the year-end balances for actuals?
That's-
Minus-
That she said
minus-
that.
Yeah, I think we said that in
We're gonna do that, yes. we're going
the
to.
presentation
She
pointed that
mentioned that
out.
earlier in the presentation.
Okay, I didn't see it on the chart here, that's why I,
That's
like,
the
after
23
beginning of the year,
that's not-
shortly into the middle of January, then we'll do the supplemental to update all the numbers. Am I getting it right?
I'd be fine with that. So we're working off the correct balances.
Okay, all right, good,
Oh.
thanks.
Okay, so the only thing with these dates is when do we review the comp study? When do you guys wanna review it? The 14th? With the first reading?
Yeah, it's in the pack tonight. That would give you a little bit. And
Yeah, I think we're at the time that we're not gonna.
yeah,
like,
and we
review it
can
tonight.
pass the budget with those numbers in it and readjust as needed. If
Yeah, I think there could be a discussion, you have a first read and then discussion, say comp study and present to us. where the impacts are.
Okay.
Again, I get it, that's public record and everything, but we don't need to be, like, we could be more like, well, how much is the police, how much is the staff, how much is the water, you can do it kind of in groups, you don't have to, I'm okay if you don't do like specific people and positions,
I thought you
especially.
separated that already.
Just
right?
police and admin, not.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, do like police, do admin, do water, you don't need to be like, this much is for, chief, this much is for, I'm okay with it being, I'm not gonna lie, I opened it, I looked at it for like 5 seconds, and I was like, we had so much else going on today, I didn't dive into it.
It's a lot, just to be super transparent, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what the PNF committee agreed on. So I tried to summarize it in the memo, and we can definitely add more.
Is there a memo in the Dropbox for the comp study? Okay. Yeah, if you could do, between now and the 14th, let's think about a good way to present it, discuss it, and talk through it. Again, it's just a big number, we need to understand, it's the biggest number on there, and
Yep.
just understand the timelines and everything, so.
Okay.
Awesome. Motion to
I would like to a motion that we adjourn.
second. Thanks, guys.